I'm Niko. I'm with General Catalyst Partners. We're an early-stage venture capital firm with about $3 billion under management, nationwide presence, offices in Cambridge in Massachusetts, New York City, and Palo Alto. I've been one of the founding team members of the Palo Alto office, and we invest a lot in consumer and enterprise IT. Most of my body of work is in the consumer space, but about 60% of our capital is invested across the firm in enterprise. So we're here to talk about go-to-market strategy. I got this from Wikipedia, and this is, frankly, one of my favorite, questions whenever I meet with founders, especially at the seed stage. What's your go-to-market strategy? Essentially, what I want to hear is how you're going to get your product or your service in front of your potential users or customers. What's the strategy to get there? And a lot of it is about distribution. A lot of it is about who are the customers. A bunch of it is around pricing, if it's a product that you're going to be collecting money for. And also, there's always the time element into that, like, how quickly, because, we VCs operate in a 5 to 9 year kind of time frame. So, and especially since every round that you're going to be raising is going to last for 12 to 18 months, I want to see the velocity at any given moment in stage. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but this is from Alex Osterwalder's book, which is a business model innovation book. But it's a canvas that can help you figure out what's your go-to-market strategy. And you can see, what's the value prop of your product. You're supposed, to fill in all these huge empty white boxes. And if you compile all this together and then give it to a VC or put it together as a pitch deck, probably, you're going to cover a lot of the content that a venture capitalist would anticipate to hear during the pitch deck. So let's talk about a few strategies. And I'll do that in the context of some of the portfolio companies that I've invested in and know pretty well. So how many of you know ClassDojo? It's an education technology company. Oh, fantastic. And I see some familiar faces in the tech space. So ClassDojo is a behavior management company that 1 out of 3 teachers use every day in the US to essentially track the behavior of students and do class management in a very painless way. So the 2 founders are from the UK, and they want to build something really huge in education. But very quickly they figured that in order to have an impact in education technology, they would have to solve distribution. And historically, for all these companies that were building and selling products to the K-12 market segment, solving distribution meant to build a nationwide sales force that is very costly, trying to get in front of districts, states, and school principals to sell the product, very top-down process, and then hope that the teachers are going to be using it in the classroom, or the students are going to be using it in the classroom or after school. So the ClassDojo guys, 4 years ago, they said, oh, wow, let's learn from what happened in the enterprise, where we had seen the consumerization of enterprise, and try to apply some of these learnings in the K-12 market. So they started building something for teachers. And they were like, we're not going to go about building a sales team. We're not going to go about trying to get a hold of the principal and the admin authorities at the state and district level. We're going to be targeting teachers on Twitter, on Facebook, over email, directly and personally. But they had no idea what to build. So they came here to the US and they started conducting a lot of interviews with teachers. It's one thing, to just conduct an interview because people say something, but then, you go and observe what they do and they do something totally different. So they went and attended hundreds of hours of actually classwork with teachers in the classroom. And they shadowed everything that they did for a few months. And quickly they realized that class management is a massive pain point for all these teachers. And they found out that 1 out of 3 teachers actually quit teaching altogether 2 years in, because it's a very humiliating task, trying to discipline and motivate kids in the classroom 7-8 hours every day. So basically, they build a world-class class management tool where teachers give awards to students every day to reward certain behaviors like creativity, participation, and punish other behaviors like distracting your students. And the teacher walks around in the classroom and with his smartphone can give these awards. Kids hear the sound. There is always something projected on the wall with the seating layout, and every kid is represented by a monster, and kids accumulate points. And it seems that this is something very easy to do. Teachers love it. They spread the word, and this is one of the companies that now, has cracked distribution in education with this very, at the time, unconventional, unproven, to an extent, stupid go-to-market strategy. Obviously, 4 years later, there are a few others who went after teachers first instead of the traditional route, the top-down route. So companies like Edmodo and Remind. There are some other examples. The next company to talk about is another, consumer company that has been quite discussed in 2014. Do you recognize the logo of that company? Yeah, so it's Yik Yak. So this is a company. The name of the company is Yik Yak, Y-I-K, one word. Second word is Y-A-K. So if you're younger than 22, so meaning you're college students, or you have kids who are college students, probably you've heard of that company. This company started late last year in Atlanta from a couple of college students there. And essentially, to use a lot of Silicon Valley buzzwords, they're an anonymous, mobile, local bulletin board. This is a lot of VC buzzwords. But if you go and chat with one of the users, they will tell you, I love using Yik Yak because it helps me find out what's happening on my campus around me right now. So college kids use it multiple times every day, like over half an hour every day, to get informed, crack jokes, get entertained, all that stuff. So what the founder of this company noticed while using other social media platforms was something, that is very simple, but hadn't appeared, to a lot of people till then. So he figured that on Twitter in particular, some of the most popular accounts are party accounts. These are accounts that a lot of people follow, but we don't actually really know who the owner of that account is. And it turns out that all the content of these accounts tends, to get retweeted all the freaking time. Also, the founder of that company noticed that historically in social media, it's all about the power users who have become the major influencers and have a lot of followers, a lot of friends, produced a ton of content, and the field is not level. And especially, for the average, person, at times, you don't feel really good. You're tired of seeing the life of the same, people again and again across all these different platforms. So the founder of Yik Yak said, hey, wait a minute. We're going to build a platform where everybody is going to be equal to everybody else. And with anonymity, this is going to get, to add another flavor to the content. So it's going to be more creative. It's going to be more fun. And, obviously sometimes when people do not behave, it can, get pretty nasty. What they did from a go-to-marketing standpoint, which was genius, was they employed a rather, simple technique, email marketing, to essentially copy Facebook's 2004-2005 strategy, where they want to have every single student use the product. So the two founders of the company crafted some unbelievably funny emails that they send out to sororities and fraternities in all the colleges. And for somebody hearing that story in 2014, 2015, doesn't sound like something new. But I think that the lesson learned here is if you make something that is very funny, extremely entertaining, and you send it out to a lot of other people that probably would be good target users for your product, it may work. And this is what happened with Yik Yak. They started seeing some early adopters in some campuses. And because of the nature of the product, they knew that as soon as they had 50 students using the app in one college, 2 weeks in, they would have 50% of all the college campus using the app. Why is that? Because of the word of mouth associated with the product. And the conversation among students went like this. Hey, did you hear about that? And the other person would be like, no, I haven't. Where did you hear about it? On Yik Yak. What is Yik Yak? And then next thing you knew is that person, went in the mobile app store to download the app. So creative email marketing with strong word of mouth can work pretty well when it comes to mobile social products. The next company I'd like to talk about is a company called ClassPass. I don't know if any of the particularly, women in the room have been customers of the product. Oh, you are? Great. Fantastic. Thank you. So basically what this company is trying to do is provide every single one of us with a pass to go and attend group fitness classes at any gym, at any boutique studio, anywhere in the country. So this sounds like, very simple, strong value proposition that everybody gets. But it took the company almost, 3.5, 4 years to get there. The founder of the company, when she was getting started in 2012, what she was frustrated with was, hey, living in New York, it's really hard to figure out what is the studio that offers a particular fitness class that I want to attend. There's so many studios, and there are so many different options, and I don't know when its class is available. It's a mess. So she started building a kayak for group fitness activities out of New York. And launched that, went through Techstars, and nothing happened. Because apparently, not a lot of other people were interested in that particular niche solution. But over time, as she was chatting with a lot of the early users, she figured out that what a bigger problem was had to do with signing up for a lot of these classes and becoming an active, paying customer. And people wanted to attend specific classes at Studio A and also, other classes at Studio B, but it became, progressively quite expensive. So she pivoted to a new model that feels a little bit like, one of these Groupon living social kind of services where you pay $100 a month, $99 a month, and you can have access to any gym and studios, group fitness activity in the country. And basically, on the mobile app or the web app, you can go check out what's happening around you, and literally, even an hour, before, make a reservation and be there. And this is something that is much, much cheaper than if you were, customer of Flywheel and Equinox and all the other, bigger brands. How did they get there? They got there just through studying all the data. So when they were launching, iteration A, iteration B, iteration C, the founder has an operations research background, and she was paying particular attention to all the customer cohorts, trying, to see what users really like. And as soon as they figured out that with the most recent, iteration, in the early days, 70% of the new users were active, actually signing up thanks to word of mouth or referrals from the existing customers. She had a big aha moment, realizing, wow, this is something that probably, can work out. So if you iterate again and again and pay particular attention to the data, you may stumble upon something that hopefully, can work out, big way. There's another New York City portfolio company of ours. It's a company called Oscar. It's a health insurance company. You know, I guess a lot of you would be thinking, why do a venture capitalist ever invest in an insurance company? Because, you know, the insurance business has been around forever. Probably, you know, there haven't really been any VC-backed insurances. The margins are not great, and fairly, you know, simple business with a shitload of very, very well-funded and notable brands. So the Oscar guys were very interested in doing something in the broader healthcare space. And what happened after the Affordable Care Act, if in the state of New York, an opportunity to purchase a new health insurance license came up. And these are, you know, opportunities that do not come up very often, but whenever they do, even if you just, you know, buy that asset, the ability to run a health insurance company may be, you know, like viable. So they said, hey, let's try and see if we can get that license. We know nothing about health insurance. We're tech people. But maybe, you know, the authorities are like, shit, you know, health insurance historically sucks. Let's see if this, you know, young group of people can figure it out. So timing was great in their regard in terms of a go-to-market strategy. And this was coupled with their phenomenal ability to fundraise. So the founders of Oscar are unbelievable fundraisers. And as, you know, Glenn and Steve mentioned before, we VCs in specific businesses where we know from the beginning they're going to be very capital intensive. If we know that a person is a really good fundraiser, even if, you know, the business at that moment in time doesn't look great, maybe we overlook that fact and want to actually, you know, write them a check. So the Oscar folks were extremely capable of raising tens of millions of dollars just to actually, you know, put it in the bank. Because whenever you get a license to operate a health insurance company, you have to set aside, you know, a good chunk of capital in order to meet any claims that will be coming your way. So essentially, you know, phenomenal fundraising coupled with a unique opportunity to obtain a license is a lesson learned from here. And in healthcare or other heavily regulated markets, these opportunities appear once in a while. And this is essentially, you know, also a moat that you can have, you know, between yourself and your competitors. The next company I'd like to talk about is a company called Stripe. So this is a phenomenal story. The founders of this company moved to Silicon Valley out of Ireland. They dropped out of MIT, and they went through Y Combinator. They started the first company. It was in the e-commerce space, did fairly well. Then, you know, they were trying to figure out what to do next, because one of them was like 19, the other person was 21. And as developers, they quickly figured out that, hey, if you want to sell something online, it's incredibly hard to accept credit cards. And the reason is a lot of the incumbents, and I'm talking about 2011 timeframe, and in particular PayPal, which was and continues to be the biggest player in the space, it took you many weeks, if not months, to get it up and running for your website. So let's say that you want to sell something. Your developer or team of developers would have to deal with a PayPal integration for weeks. So the Stripe founders, who are very hardcore developers and fairly notable in the open source community at the time, figured, hey, that's unacceptable. So why is this still the case? We're in 2011. Let's make that process extremely easy and take it down from few weeks, if not months, depending on how skilled your developers are, to 15 minutes. And this is exactly what they did. So they essentially, you know, engineered success out of streamlining a very cumbersome workflow. That their product was so much better than the alternative. And the next thing they did is they figured quickly that developers talk to other developers. And essentially, by building a product that has enormous word of mouth, they can very quickly get to have a lot of small startups and businesses using the product. This was, back then something that was not very well understood. Same way that ClassDojo did it, through targeting teachers to build a product with a lot of momentum. The Stripe guys did through targeting developers. The other thing that Stripe focused on, which was fairly unique, was, and unlike any conventional wisdom at the time, was to go after the new world. And I remember when they came in and pitched us at the seed and the Series A stage, a lot of my partners were like, hey, if you don't get some of the big guys to sign up, you're going to have no business, because historically, payment processing businesses are terrible. You just capture a tiny, tiny bit of the transaction volume that goes through. And the Stripe founder said, we're just in the very beginning of internet becoming more mainstream and people spending a lot more money from their income online. And they said, we're going to focus on the new world. And when we heard that, we were like, what are you talking about? And the guy said, there's this tiny little company called Airbnb, 2011, a small company. The other tiny little company called Uber, small company, that we think are going to be worth many tens of billions of dollars, not 10 years from today, but 3 to 5 years from that time. And they were right. What was really critical about them was that it was much easier to get hold of the new world, like the small startups, when they were getting started, rather than trying to be unbelievably capable of doing enterprise sales with the Walmarts, the Amazons, and all the other bigger, e-commerce players and retailers. Another story, which unfortunately we're not investors in, is the story of Uber. So I don't know if you guys, have visited the part of the world where I come from, Greece or, Italy recently, but if you visit a lot of the archaeological sites over there, you will see that a lot of the remains are essentially, the dwellings of rich people. And you're like, wow, why is this the case? Because probably, back then they had a lot of resources. They built, stuff that weathered, the passage of time. And with Uber, when Garrett Camp came up with the initial idea, he was a fairly wealthy individual. He had one exit. And he and his co-founder, the current CEO of the company, came up with this very silly but creative idea coming out of a party. Hey, what if, we could push a button and have a car, black, car come to us. And, there was a lot of dialogue between them. Hey, who would ever, afford to pay for that? Would this be just, for us and our rich friends? But they were in between, of starting companies. So they said, yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's try and build something that rich people would only be customers first, and see where it goes. And, it's ironic that actually none of them was the CEO of the company at the time. They had another person who was the CEO of the company for almost, the first couple of years. By the way, that's not something new. It happens in a lot of other businesses, like Tesla. The Tesla Roadster, when it came out, it went for $110,000. And the reason was, hey, let's try, to build something for fairly, affluent customers first. We're essentially going to fund, the research and the product development for the next models. And hopefully, along the way, we'll get a lot more funding and prove that there is a big business to be built over here. So the Uber guys targeted the most affluent customer segment through a distribution channel, the iOS platform. And it scaled, pretty quickly, thanks also to the unbelievable network effects that the company has in the supply and the demand side. Next story is a company called Livongo Health. So we're investors in this mobile diabetes disease management company. And this is a story of an extremely authentic and mission-driven founder, which in specific markets can be a phenomenal go-to-market strategy. So the CEO of that company, unfortunately, has a close family member of his who has been a diabetes patient. And as a technologist, he was observing how broken the workflow of the diabetes patient is. And he couldn't understand why that's the case. He was looking, searching for all the different glucometers, and they looked like, phones from the 90s, like, so bad. And he was like, wow, no reason why compliance, not surprised why compliance rates are so low. So, because he could see the workflow being so broken through the lens of that close family member of his, he started getting involved with nonprofits in the diabetes space. And from there, he got way more experienced about how big the market was, how many other people actually face the same problem, how easy it is to get hold of a lot of other notables who have similar family stories to share. And he was like, wait a minute, I've been a very successful tech founder, and I feel this is my calling in life. So he started that company a couple of years ago to solve a very massive problem with an extremely broken workflow. So if you're authentic and you really are mission-driven, you can go a long way, because you can see and meet others who face, the same problems with you and have a very strong appeal to their heart. Next company is Illumia. So this is a company in the enterprise networking security space. And this is a company that now, has raised many tens of millions of dollars. But when they were getting started, and they came to VCs like ourselves, asking us for $20 million, it wasn't that obvious. So what they did is they said, we have an idea that the world is changing when it comes to security threats, and we think that the existing paradigm doesn't really work. So let's try and talk to a lot of our potential customers and see any ideas they may have for solving that particular problem. And we're going to co-develop a product with them, and we'll take it from there. So literally, this is a founding team that went and became best friends with the CIOs of all the major financial institutions, and did such an unbelievable story, convincing them that they could build a product solving a lot of their network security issues, that the CIOs of the banks called a lot of VCs like myself, saying, shit, you have to find these guys, because they're going to build something that we've historically tried to build in-house, never managed. And not only, we're going to become paying customers after they build it 3 years later, but hopefully become investors in the business alongside you. Do you guys like video conferencing and collaborating with your teams from all over the world? I don't know if you've had that experience, but historically, this has been a broken experience. Despite the wealth of hardware or software-only products out there, we as a firm that has offices in 3 different locations, we've been struggling get to work together, because all the extremely expensive equipment that we've bought fails us again and again. So we decided to partner with this team that came out of Google. They had built Google Docs before. And their observation was, Google is such an unbelievably well-run company that you can take bits and pieces of services and technology that only Googlers can access at the company and create separate companies, because other enterprises out there would love to be customers. So at Google, if you've been to any of their offices, every single room, like meeting room that they have at any Google office, can be connected to another office anywhere in the world. And the moment you walk in, you can essentially be working seamlessly with somebody else, at another office without doing much. So that team said, probably it's very nice of Google to have this, but they don't have any interest in providing that technology to the rest of the world. So they thought back then, and thankfully it's still the case. So they went out trying to see if other people would be interested. And they quickly figured out that a lot of the early stage tech companies here in San Francisco that have distributed teams, especially with technical teams or customer service teams all over the world, faced exactly the same problem. So they started signing up a lot of customers for a solution that they would build. And they started receiving money from them for a solution to be built several years later. And it was kind of crazy because they came to us and they said, we have all these customers, just the two of us. We don't really have any developers, but we think, this is a space that a new company could do pretty well. So, if you are successful selling to people and signing them up as customers and collecting, revenue, not realized revenue, but money up front, probably, that's something that can become a significant business later on. How many of you are customers of The Honest Company, or your wives are customers of The Honest Company? You are? Thank you. So that's a company that we founded a few years ago, and one of the founders is Jessica Alba. So probably you might have heard of her as a Hollywood actress, but in fact she's one of the most talented entrepreneurs we've had in our portfolio. And what she realized herself when she gave birth to her two kids was that diapers in this country were toxic, were environmentally not friendly, and lacked style. So she started doing a lot of Google research, figuring out in other countries whether diapers could be more environmentally friendly or more stylish, and more importantly, more user-friendly for their kids than the existing ones that you could find at retailers here. And she found a few in Australia and several European countries, but she's like, that's crazy. Why, can we have these high-quality products here in the US? So she went to Washington, D.C., along with another individual who had done a lot of research documenting how diapers are toxic and bad for kids, and tried to gather a lot of attention in order to change a little bit the regulatory framework for diaper products and other products that babies get in touch with. And she figured that nobody really cared. Nobody wanted to listen. So she started a company and went out, recruited a CEO, and raised capital. And this is a traditional e-commerce company. And historically, e-commerce companies either have low margin, or it's very expensive to acquire customers, or both. And historically, a lot of VCs have been very skeptical investing in e-commerce companies. So she came to us, and when we invested in the company, one of the key reasons why we did so was because of her. And her being such a notable figure, she could essentially, do a great job promoting and marketing the company, becoming the ambassador of the brand, without having to raise tens of millions of dollars of venture capital in order to acquire customers. And that's exactly what happened. She was very successful being on the cover of every single magazine, and also being invited in a lot of TV shows, which helped the company not raise any capital to spend on marketing for 2 years. What was also more impressive to us was the fact that Jessica had to actually transform her own following, because back in 2008, 2009, there's a lot of mostly, young male guys who followed her on Facebook and Twitter. And the moment that she posted a photo, it was like, hey, cutie, how are you doing? I want to meet you. What's your number? But if you actually go and follow her now on Instagram and Facebook, it's a very different story. All the followers are moms with kids like her, and it's an unbelievable success story for her and the company. The last company I'd like to talk about is Snapchat. So I met Evan and Bobby when they were Stanford students a few years ago, and invested in them early on. When Snapchat launched, it launched as part of a class project pretty much on campus at Stanford. It was a joke. Students didn't really get it. They were not big fans of Evan. They were not big fans of the product. And nobody was paying attention on campus. And bear in mind, Stanford is a university where pretty much every person that has a startup, and you're trying to get hold of all your friends either to work for you or try it out. So not surprisingly, in 2011, when Evan launched it, nobody cared. A few months later, at Christmas time, his mom told one of his cousins, who was a student in high school, about the product, because she asked, what is Evan doing? And his mom said, hey, he's built that up. And that girl started using the product and figured out that, wow, this is a really, really fast camera app that helps me save a shitload of time when I communicate with all my friends, other girls, because I don't have to answer any questions, where am I, or what am I doing? I snap a photo of myself, and you have all the answers that you need. So at Christmas time in 2011, that girl, who turns out that she was one of the cool girls in her school, started communicating with all her girlfriends through that service. And from there, it got picked up in other high schools in LA. And then Evan, who was a senior at Stanford, started seeing his infrastructure costs, the Amazon Web Services costs, go up. It's like, what's going on here? So he very quickly, realized that college students probably were mature and really old to use the product, and they were his enemies. But his allies were high school students, and in particular girls, because in the school that his cousin was a student of, a month later, all the boys were also using the product in order to get in touch with the girls. And what ended up happening is, at Stanford, some of the students that had siblings who were high school students also picked up the product, because Snapchat as a communication app is inherently viral. At the time, there wasn't the stories feature, so I couldn't do anything but send a snap to somebody else every time that I opened the app. So in the spring timeframe of 2012, Snapchat started appearing in a lot of headlines, and it was all about sexting. And this was simply, one of the best things ever happened to the company till then, because it drove a lot of headlines, especially in popular and mainstream media outlets. And a lot of people were curious, Snapchat, what is that? Let's check it out and download it. And because it's a communication viral app, it got a lot more users. The insiders, including myself, I had access to the data. It was nothing, about sexting, because at the time, over 80% of the users were girls. And girls did not really, sex with other girls. So if you're controversial, it can help a lot, and it can be a phenomenal go-to-market strategy, because it provides you with free press, it provides you with strong word of mouth, and essentially, this is the equivalent of not spending money to acquire users or customers. Obviously, you cannot be controversial about the same thing again and again and again, because it's going to bite your ass. So you have to graduate from controversy type A to controversy, time B in a reasonable time frame. The next big thing that happened to Snapchat right after they had raised their Series A was when Facebook copied them, and they launched their Poke product to be a direct Snapchat copycat. This is phenomenal because international news outlets also picked it up. As Facebook was trying to promote it, they had a lot of journalists from all over the world trying to promote the poll cap, and they actually, used headlines along the lines, Facebook copied Snapchat to relaunch Poke. So a lot of people overseas got to hear about Snapchat through that. So if you're controversial or if your competitors get to copy you whenever, you have some momentum, it can be immensely helpful in terms of a velocity. Yeah?
Did they hire the president?
So what historically they've done, no, they didn't hire her because she was still a high school student. But what historically they've done from day one was anybody who wrote in their blog post or on Facebook something that very well described what Snapchat is, what the next set of features should be, what it means to the user, they've reached out and hired a lot of these people and made them product designers. They made them marketing people. They made them product people. So I think, some key, takeaways from this talk are the following. Every business is not, the same with any of the companies that I mentioned. So you have, to become successful through rapid iteration, failing fast, as we say over here, and grind it up. Very few people have an epiphany and come up with something that works, from day one, like the Yik Yak guys. Most have to grind it out like the ClassPass folks. There is a lot to learn from the companies that have failed or strategies that have failed, rather than, from a lot of these success stories. And frankly, if you try out some of the stuff that I told you now, maybe a little bit late, unless, it's like 3 or 6 months old, because a lot of people have heard of these strategies and are employing them, so they've lost, a lot of their leverage. In Silicon Valley, and in particular, with tech and product-driven teams, most of them, do really, really good job when it comes to building a product that looks nice, is usable. But distribution is always, the challenge. Like, how do I get this in front of my users? How do I get it in front of my customers? And becoming extremely creative about distribution, becoming experts when it comes, to getting customers, getting users, is what's going to help you raise your seed round, what's going to help you raise your Series A round. And the last thing is that, that phenomenal graph from Paul Graham, where it basically shows you that if you grow, like 5% every week, and this is what he wants, all the YC companies to do when they go through the program, grow, over 10% week over week. If you continue to do that, after a year, you will have, 12 and a half times growth. And obviously, if this is revenue, it's awesome. If it's users, it's good. VCs normally prefer profits, but in the early stages, you don't have, profits. So thanks a lot, guys. Happy to answer, questions, now, or like, if you don't want to do it like over an audience, one-on-one, whatever you want. Yeah.
I was curious about i5 products. So they sold a lot of content providers they didn't have built yet, right?
Yeah.
So you guys invested how many customers they had, what was how much they made. So just to gauge what you guys are.
Yeah, so they sat on contracts of several notable tech companies, fast-growing startups. And whenever, we called any of these reference potential customers, the story was the same. We've tried every single product. It's always failing us. These guys seem to get what we really want, and they've built a successful company before. Please fund them to be able, to use your product a few years later.
So were these just commitments to buy, or were they actual signed
They were LOIs, essentially. Yeah.
How Snapchat can it ever
You know, if you were to ask me that question in 2011, 2012, probably I wouldn't have an answer. But today, they are making money. It's very early days. What they do is they charge customers north of $500,000 for ads that they run on their platform. So essentially, they're competing with TV. And the reason is Snapchat has many hundreds of millions of monthly active users. A shitload of them are daily active users. And essentially, they've built a massive broadcasting platform. So if you're McDonald's or Chipotle or any of the big brands who wants to get hold of a lot of younger folks, and you cannot really do that through TV, Snapchat offers a unique medium to do that. So there were a fair amount of articles in the last couple of weeks saying, wow, you know, brands started paying $750K to Snapchat for that. Maybe that's too expensive. But yeah, if you have paying customers, there's evidence, you know, that it works.
So Snapchat, I mean, if you look at this promotion strategy, basically, they work kind of well doing so.
I would say that serendipity worked in their favor, yes. But in all of these stories of mainstream consumer products, the whole universe, you know, the stars have to be aligned in order to build something big. For example, Snapchat without smartphones that have front-facing cameras wouldn't exist. The selfie revolution wouldn't exist. So Snapchat happened to be there when all the smartphones that people bought had front-facing cameras, and also Snapchat happened to offer the fastest camera app out there. In 2011, their camera app was faster than the native camera app.
So what was for you the criteria basically? You know, what did you see basically in Snapchat basically?
Yeah, so
was it the team or was it the kind of...
So a huge part of it is Evan. So once in a while you get to meet with founders that can create a reality distortion field, and they can paint a very detailed picture of the future 5 years out. And you find yourself, wow, you know, if 5% of what that person told me comes true, I'd better be part of that picture. So he could do a great job. By the way, he never presented us with a slide deck, nothing at all. And I never saw anything written, you know, from him. Probably, you know, some of the first stuff that I saw written from him were the leaked emails, you know. And the second thing was, in all of these stories, there's always a metric that grabs your attention. So in his case, he had a lot of girls who were using, like 25% of his users, were using the product over 25 times a day. And when you see this kind of engagement in an inherently viral product, you're like, may work out. So there's two reasons, you know, predominantly led us to invest. But yeah, again, very controversial investment. Yeah.
Can you tell us, can you tell us about your go-to-market experience with your startup and also how you transitioned to venture capital?
Yeah, so I'm not a good person to talk about my startup because we miserably failed. So we got the timing right. So I was trying to build a social network product on top of LinkedIn. In 2009, the world had seen what happened on Facebook when Facebook opened up its platform to developers, and a lot of people started building the Facebook apps, and you started seeing gaming apps or other apps have many tens of millions of users. And LinkedIn suffered historically from chronic user under-engagement. So they said, you know, if we cannot figure it out how to build an engaging product, let's open up the platform and hopefully some smart developers will figure it out for us. So we're one of the first teams that tried to build something on top of LinkedIn. But what we got wrong is that the platform essentially, you know, wasn't a great one to do so, because unlike Facebook that believes in a more open world, LinkedIn tends to hoard its data. And they feel that this is part of the core value prop they offer to their users, that no developer will access your data and do whatever they want. So a few months in, we quickly realized that despite having a LinkedIn co-founder in our team, we had to haggle with them every single day about number of API calls we would do. And when you're trying to build a consumer company that hopefully will reach many tens of millions of users, if you have your growth be capped, you're done, you know. So we're right in terms of looking into this opportunity early on, but we're dumb not to understand that, you know, when you take platform risk, sometimes it doesn't work out. So I wasted a year. And ever since, you know, companies that are built on top of other platforms, I'm more skeptical. So unless I see, you know, very strong escape velocity, I'm more skeptical, because platforms make you and they can break you whenever they want, because you have no signed contracts with any of these platforms. I transitioned to VC. Short story is I got acqui-hired to join the founding team of the Palo Alto office for the firm. So I wasn't looking to become venture capitalist, but I guess it always starts, you know, with meeting somebody who changes your life. So I met an individual who was a VC and entrepreneur in the past, and got enchanted and took a leap of faith, and the two of us got acqui-hired to join General Catalyst. And 4 years later, it turned out to be a great home for me. Yeah.
Does your firm invest in software?
B2B software. Yeah, so, you know, High Five is a B2B company. They have hardware and software. Illumia is a B2B company. They have software. Yeah. I would say, you know, 60% of our capital is invested in enterprise, and that's the... It depends how skilled of a salesperson you are and how strong contacts you have and whether they trust you. Some people can do that. Most often, these are individuals who built companies before. I've seen that, yeah. And,
I'm saying, when you invest in these types of businesses, what do you require?
oh, myself, what I require. It depends on the space. It's very hard, you know, for me to answer, you know, this question. Like, but in enterprise, especially at the seed stage or the Series A, it's always mostly about the team. And a lot of these companies have no traction because it's expensive to build a team and build a product. It takes, like, you know, 10 or, you know, even 20 million bucks or more to build something out. So we want to see somebody who can build the right team, set the vision, and have an ability to fundraise. And if we find, you know, such a person, or, you know, 2 or 3, you know, such founders who partner together, would be more inclined, you know, to write them a check. Most of the checks we write range from $2 to $15 million, but we write checks that range from $20K to $50 million. Like when we were investing in all the YC teams, this was $20K. Oh. So thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate your attention. Thank you.